All right, let's have an audio check here. All right, let's have an audio check.
Yes, it's working. Good
here.
stuff.
Indeed, great. Okay, welcome to the Sidney Winston Show. This is ReasonSpeak. For today, 2nd of July, one of the episodes that I want to do is this one, which is the consideration of the Israeli government annexing Judea and Samaria. There's a historical reason for it, which I'll outline for you in very short bullet points at the end. But the first thing I want to do is focus on today's report in the Times of Israel, where Likud ministers urged Netanyahu to annex West Bank by the end of the month. This is published 2nd of July today. So I'll read through it with you, see if we can make any sense out of it, all right? Is that big enough? I think so, eh? Maybe not. Let me make it a little bit bigger for you. There we go. So, senior lawmakers and ministers in Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's Likud party launched a push on Wednesday urging the premier to annex the West Bank before the end of the Knesset's summer session on July 27, claiming that he must ride the historic achievements of the war against Iran. In a letter signed by 15 Likud ministers currently in government, as well as Knesset Speaker Amir Ohana, the lawmakers wrote that after the state of Israel's historic achievements in the face of Iran's axis of evil and its sympathizers, the task must be completed and the existential threat from within must be eliminated to prevent another massacre in the heart of the country. The politicians added that the strategic partnership, backing, and support of the U.S. and President Donald Trump have made it a propitious time to move forward with it now and ensure Israel's security for generations. Israel captured the West Bank from Jordan in 1967 during the Six-Day War, but has never formally annexed it. Israel began moving toward annexation in 2020 as part of a wider so-called peace plan released by Trump during his previous term, but ultimately dropped the idea in exchange for normalization with the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain. Wednesday's letter was met with praise from the far-right Religious Zionism Party chair, Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich, who is also a minister within the Defense Ministry for matters related to the West Bank. He said that as soon as the Prime Minister gives the order, he will be ready to implement Israeli sovereignty over the territory immediately. Netanyahu is slated to depart next week for Washington and meet with Trump in the White House on Monday, with the recent 12-day war with Iran and the U.S. President's efforts to forge a ceasefire in Gaza expected to be high on the agenda of discussions. During Trump's first term in office, the U.S. recognized Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights for the first time, a move met with jubilation from Israel's right-wing lawmakers. In the days after the ceasefire with Iran went into effect last week, Netanyahu and Trump hinted at a larger regional deal that would end the Gaza war and include normalization or peace deals with new countries, including potentially Syria, Lebanon, and Saudi Arabia. U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff said last week that he expects some pretty big announcements on countries that are coming into the Abraham Accords, while Netanyahu said the Iran war opens up an opportunity for a dramatic expansion of the peace agreements. Israel and Saudi Arabia were believed to be close to normalizing relations before Hamas's October 7, 2023 attack, which set off the ensuing war in Gaza, currently stretching into its 21st month. One of the major sticking points had been Riyadh's demand that Israel agree to recognize a Palestinian state. It appears unlikely that Israel will make any moves to unilaterally annex the West Bank, while also pursuing peace deals with Syria and other regional players. Earlier Wednesday, Justice Minister Yariv Levin made the same public annexation call during a meeting with settler leader Yossi Dagan, the head of the Samaria Regional Council. I think that this period, beyond the current issues, is a time of historic opportunity that we must not miss, said Levin. The time for sovereignty has come, the time to apply sovereignty. My position on this matter is firm. It is clear. Levin said the issue must be at the top of the priority list. I think it is both realistic and possible, he added, and it is essential, first of all, to realize our right to the land. Certainly to contribute to security and to do justice to the settlers and the settlement movement who deserve to be equal citizens in every respect who live in settlements that are part of the fully sovereign state of Israel. A number of cabinet ministers and coalition MKs issued a call to annex both the West Bank and the Gaza Strip during a conference of the ultra-nationalist sovereignty movement's youth chapter Noar Ribonut in Sderot last month. Israel has so far refrained from annexing the West Bank and Gaza, which it withdrew from entirely in 2005, amid international pressure for the territories to form the base of a Palestinian state and concern for demographic challenges should Israel take in millions more Palestinians. Well, I got something to say about that. My view is that, and I'll even back it up with receipts later. But my view is that Transjordan, the sovereign country of Transjordan, went to war with the nascent state of Israel in 1948. During that war, Transjordan conquered Judea and Samaria, called it the West Bank of the Jordan River, and referred to it as the West Bank from then on. Shortly after the conquering of the West Bank, Transjordan annexed the West Bank, 1950 or so, and then changed its name, the country's name, from Transjordan to Jordan. Now that Jordan does not have control of the West Bank anymore, Israel wrestled it from Jordan's control in 1967, Jordan should rename itself to Transjordan, because there's nothing Jordan about Transjordan anymore. In 1967, Israel was attacked by Jordan and other Arab states surrounding, and Israel conquered the West Bank from Jordan and is now legally allowed to impose its annexation of the territory and incorporate it into the state of Israel, just like Jordan did in 1950. They annexed the West Bank into Jordan. They lost the war. Israel took it. Now Israel has a right to annex the territory which is Judea and Samaria on the west side of the Jordan River, and annex it into annex it into the state of Israel. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to run a few clips ranging from 10 years ago to 5 years ago to maybe 2 years ago. I can't really remember, but some clips on the subject of annexation. So we'll get into it right away. Okay.
You know, I think we see now with President Obama attacking Israel, saying, okay, never mind, we're not going to have any more peace process. What we're planning on doing is changing American policy and going straight to the UN Security Council to open up a front against Israel, to try to force Israel into completely indefensible borders, the 1949 armistice lines, that the time has come for Israel, the new government that's being formed now, to come out with an alternative policy. And the alternative policy that we have to put out is a policy of applying Israeli law and through it its sovereignty to Judea and Samaria. And so that's what my book discusses. And I think as the days pass, we see that my book originally came out in English a year ago, and it has changed in many ways the debate in the United States about the Palestinian conflict with Israel. And it's very important now that it's here in Israel and that we're having this discussion, because the question couldn't be more urgent. The government has got to put forward a new policy regarding the Palestinians. Two states failed. We all know it. We can't resurrect it because it wasn't we that made it fail.
So people will say, so the two-state solution failed, but still, you don't have to go ahead and take it all. I mean, the world won't like this idea. Or am I wrong?
Well, the world doesn't like us now. I mean, what we're doing now is we're in a situation where all of the things that they said are going to happen to us if we do X, Y, or Z are happening to us now, when we're saying, no, we support the establishment of a Palestinian state in Israel's heartland. And so we have to recognize where we are. We are facing a mass of hostility from the Western world that threatens us. And we have to put forward something that we can stand behind and push forward in the face of this hostility. And I believe that it may seem radical, but actually this is a very pragmatic position to take. It's not easy, but it's doable, and it'll bring us to a safer place. It'll bring both Israel and the Palestinians, Israeli democracies, also the quest for human rights amongst ourselves and amongst the Palestinians, is going to vastly improve the status of both.
So putting aside a historical connection, biblical connection to the land of Israel, to Judea and Samaria, what are the pragmatic reasons why this is the right thing to do?
Well, this is the right thing to do beyond everything that you mentioned, because first of all, from a strategic perspective, Israel can't survive without the Jordan Valley as its western border. We can't survive with a hostile Palestinian state that's going to have an open border policy for at least Palestinian camps in all of these Arab countries. And so they're going to be overthrown by a mass wave of immigration from abroad. And we're going to face a demographic crisis in Israel. We're going to have millions of foreign Arabs just marching into the state of Palestine, and they're not going to stop there, and we're going to be flooded. So that's one, from a strategic perspective. And also from a diplomatic perspective, we cannot remain where we are today. As we see with Obama, with the French, we have to move forward. And right now we've tied ourselves to a policy of establishing a Palestinian state that's based upon an assumption of Israeli guilt for the absence of a Palestinian state, and an assumption that the absence of a Palestinian state stands at the root of all the problems in the region. This is a mad policy. It's crazy, and it only gets us to a bad place, and so we have to leave it. So from a diplomatic perspective, we'll have a much more defensible position. From a strategic perspective, we'll avert disaster that I don't know how we'd rise up from, and we'll be able to defend ourselves, and we will be able to confer a stable governance on all Israelis and all of the Arabs who live in Israel, whether citizens or non-citizens.
You're mentioning the demographic issue, and of course is also the claim to the other side, where if you bring them into Israel, right away you'll have a demographic issue with the Arabs.
Right, well, look, the whole two-state policy is based upon a series of lies. One of the main lies that they told us was that the Palestinians want peace with Israel, and we see, in fact, that the PLO wants to destroy Israel in 2015, just as it did when it was formed in 1964, and it never moved away from that. Another big lie was that we have a demographic time bomb on our hands, and that by 2005 was the original claim we were going to be a minority west of the Jordan River, Jews were. When in fact the opposite is the case. A demographic time bomb is a Jewish bomb, meaning that with each passing year, the Jewish majority in the land of Israel increases, both because of our fertility rate among Jewish women surpasses that of Palestinian women. We're having more children than they are, and also because they're suffering from mass emigration, and we are now enjoying a large and growing immigration of Jews from around the world. So the demography is a lie. It works in our favor. It will continue to work in our favor into the future. And also, we have to understand that the main force that's been causing the extremism among Israeli Arabs in particular has been the PLO and also Palestinian Arabs. If we end this legitimization of the Palestinian Authority, of the PLO, of a terrorist organization avowed to our destruction, then we're also going to take away the main source of radicalization and irredentism among Israeli Arabs and among Palestinians as well.
What can you tell us about the responses that you're hearing? First of all, here in Israel, politicians, so as you mentioned, you want there to be a difference now with the new government. What are the responses you're hearing?
Well, I mean, from an Israeli domestic perspective, I think the response has been outstanding. I mean, this book was only released to the Israeli readership 2 weeks ago, I think, in the stores, and it's already been on the bestseller list. So, there's an extraordinary amount of interest in this thesis, in this book, and having this discussion among Israelis, politicians as well. Just this week, the Jewish Home Party said that they said that they were going to form a caucus in the Knesset of Knesset members in order to implement this policy. And in the United States, I think that we've really managed. I was in the United States for 5 months after this book came out in March of 2014. I spent an enormous amount of time talking to lawmakers and briefing them. And, we're already seeing that things have changed. And Senator Ted Cruz, the Republican presidential candidate, he said that he would be willing to accept an Israeli policy of applying Israeli law, Israeli sovereignty to Judea and Samaria. In an interview with CNN, we see mass diminishment, a sharp diminishment of American support for the establishment of a Palestinian state. I think it's the lowest it's been in over 20 years. Today, that was a Washington Post poll that was just out yesterday. So, you're seeing that in the United States, a lot of people are revisiting all of the sort of anchors of American Middle East policy, largely because we had a train wreck with George W. Bush, and we're having an even more massive train wreck, and the whole station is blowing up basically under Obama. So I think that there's a real readiness, particularly among Republicans, but also on the left, to revisit the fundamental assumptions of American Middle East policy. And my thesis and my assertion that the stronger Israel is, the better off the United States is, and the more stable the Middle East is getting a lot of customers today in the United States, and we see changes in the way people are thinking and talking.
Okay, I just want to let you know that one, 10 years ago, April 1, 2015, the one you just watched. So more than 10 years ago, she could just as easily have made that same video yesterday, and it would have counted for just as much, wouldn't it have? Let me just get rid of that. Oops. I need to get rid of something. Oops. Yeah. I need to just move it over, like that. Just get it out the way. Okay. Next one.
Here tonight, I give you a special award. And to my wonderful family, my granddaughters, my daughter, my son, my husband, I'm so thrilled that you're all here with me. If you notice, I'm wearing a special little emblem here. It's a broken star. It's a broken star because it represents what happened to the state of Israel when we lost Gush Katif. It's broken. And it says, we will not forgive, we will not forget. And on the back of it, there are the names of the 21 communities that were destroyed. I was in Gush Katif during the expulsion. I was in Neve Dekalim. It was a memory that is seared into my heart, so that normally when I speak about it, my heart fills up with tears. And it's very, very hard to recall that time. You've heard all about the horrors of it. I'm not going to talk about the horrors of it. I'm going to speak very briefly about how we can fix it. There's only one solution. The Edmund Levy Commission did a study, a very impartial, a very legalistic study about the legality of Jewish life in Israel. And they found that there is no occupation, there is no illegality, that Israel is entitled to the entire land. The Jewish people are entitled to the entire land of Israel, including Judea and Samaria.
Exactly. I agree.
Nadia Matar and Yehudit Katzova, two wonderful women that we visit with all the time when we go on our Afsi Chizuk missions. We plant trees with them. We establish the right of the Jewish people to the land of Israel. They have led a campaign to apply sovereignty to Judea and Samaria. And this is what we have to work on. We have to work on applying sovereignty to Judea and Samaria, because if we can succeed in doing that, all these questions of expulsion, of removal, of division, and so on will be eliminated, because the people in Judea and Samaria, the 350,000 Jews who are living there today, they will be part of the Israeli nation instead of living in this sort of limbo state that they've been in.
I just want to point out that she said there were 350,000 Jews living in Judea and Samaria. The figure that I am familiar with, the latest figure I'm familiar with is 500,000 Jews living in Judea and Samaria. So let me have a quick look to see when. This is 12 years ago. March 27th of 2013. This is when this speech was given. So, yeah, I guess it makes sense then, huh?
All these years. So put your efforts to that. The tragedy of Gush Katif can never be removed. And we have to keep working to inform people and educate them and so on. But the important thing now is to move forward and put your energies into this sovereignty for Judea and Samaria, and I think that that's what will pay off. Now it is my great pleasure to introduce to you a woman who I met in Gush Katif. I met her and her wonderful husband, Michael, when they had their beautiful, beautiful, flourishing community in Gush Katif. If I remember correctly, and Rivka will correct me if I'm wrong, I think they had an amazing floral
Gush Katif
garden and hothouse. They were exporting flowers everywhere. I believe that's correct. I didn't have a chance to confirm it with Rivka. But if it wasn't she, then there were others who were doing that. And
this is a Jewish introduction. It's going to go on for a while before she actually brings this woman on, and we're not going to see it.
We cried together when Gush Katif was destroyed. And I did see her and her husband again in Ganei Tal. That was a temporary community in which they were living. There are temporary communities 8 years since the expulsion where people are still living in caravans. I hope and pray that Rivka and Michael are in permanent homes now. I haven't had time to find out if that's true. But it was with very, very, very great pleasure that I asked Rivka to come up and speak to you and tell you personally, there is no one who can tell you what it was like to live in Gush Katif, this flourishing, beautiful, wonderful community of 21 wonderful places that have now returned to just be sand, and launching places for rockets to come into the Negev and to stay road. My pleasure, Rivka Goldschmidt.
Wow, 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 wow. All right, that's pretty much it. But Gush Katif, yeah, maybe I should do a video on it, because it's I guess the Jewish settlement, or one of the Jewish settlements that was in Gaza before Ariel Sharon threw all the Jews out in 2005. I know very little. Oh, she did say that the greenhouses. Oh shit! Where is it? She did say that they were in the business of greenhouses and flowers, and I do know that that whole industry was left to the Gazans by the Israelis when they left in order to basically pick it up and carry on, because it's all very thriving. But the Arabs, the Muslim Brotherhood, the Muslims, they just trashed everything and started digging tunnels and building rockets because they're such idiots. All right, let's just move on to the next one. This is Hananya.
Let's talk about the annexation. So the media is hammering Israel on its plan to declare sovereignty over parts of Judea and Samaria. They call it the annexation plan. But in my opinion, there's nothing to annex here. Judea and Samaria are not Palestinian land. I'm a Jew. I'm standing in Judea and Samaria, where some of the most significant biblical events took place, where my Jewish ancestors are buried, where the Maccabees fought off the Romans, where ancient Jewish capitals have existed, Shomron and Hebron, where ancient Jewish scrolls were discovered in Qumran caves. Now tell me, where are the ancient Palestinian scrolls? Where are the Palestinian tombs and ancestors? It's funny how so many leaders are falling for the Palestinian propaganda and saying that annexation will destroy any possibility for a future peace plan. Are they serious? So the fact that Israel wants to declare sovereignty where there is a major Jewish population is an obstacle to peace, but a Palestinian leadership that incites hatred, pays terrorists, and encourages terror attacks is not an obstacle to peace? What is this hypocrisy? They are either blind or stupid. It's actually frightening to see leaders that care more about political correctness than about doing the right thing. They were elected in the first place to lead, but instead they are being led by propaganda. I have said it before, there is nothing to annex in my opinion. The Jordan Valley is where the Israelites have crossed into the Promised Land about 3,000 years ago. Where were the Palestinians then? Or you know what? Maybe I'm exaggerating, talking thousands of years, let's talk hundreds of years. Where were the Palestinians in 1869 when Mark Twain visited Israel when Jews were in exile and wrote, "We never saw a human being on the whole route. There was hardly a tree or a shrub anywhere." Why only in 1948, when the Jews have returned home, started to restore the land, make the desert bloom, why only then, suddenly a group of people woke up and is now claiming the land? Why didn't they build it before? Where were they? This is complete hypocrisy. Listen, the Palestinian leadership has been given multiple peace offers, including a very generous offer by former Prime Minister Ehud Olmert that offered to withdraw back to the 67 lines. The offer was declined. The Palestinian leadership lost their right to determine how peace is going to look like, because they are not interested in peace. They are interested in their interests, wealth, and money. They couldn't care less about human rights, about their people, and about peace.
All right, so this one is 5 years old. Okay, dated June the 20th, 2020. And we went back 12 years ago, to a video from 12 years ago that's proposing the annexation. I think the annexation should have occurred in 1967 myself. But it's never too late. We can do it right now. Let's go on to the next one.
We should move forward with implementing our sovereignty over our settlements themselves. I'm talking about the territories of the settlements themselves. After more than 50 years, it is logical that we will apply the same law which exists here in Jerusalem or Tel Aviv, also in our settlements in Judea and Samaria.
So you share that opinion with most of the right wing, but I think the real difficult question is what comes after that? What do you think should happen to the rest of the territory?
We are not demanding sovereignty over the PA territories. And even though it is not seems possible today, we still are open for future negotiations. But it is not logical when we are speaking about 500,000 Jews that they will stay in the current legal system as an equal Israeli
Jews.
citizens. And when we are talking about the practical problems,
5 years ago.
as a result of that situation, I can testify as a Minister of Education and Interior, sometimes in certain settlements like Ofra or Eli or Bethel, it is a huge effort only to build a new kindergarten. And it's just not logical to continue with that. The solutions that was once practical when we had in the settlements thousands of people are not really can be implemented when we have 500,000 for citizens there.
A senior member of the Netanyahu coalition is saying that following the election of President-elect Donald Trump, the time is right for Israel to push for a declaration of sovereignty in Jewish communities in Judea and Samaria. Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich heads the National Religious Party. He told a press conference that he hoped the incoming Trump administration would herald the recognition of Israeli sovereignty in Judea and Samaria in 2025 and end U.S. demands for a Palestinian state.
Okay, so this one is from 7 months ago. So this is way up to date. Although 7 months is a long time, things change a lot in 7 months these days, don't they?
שנת 2025 תהיה בעזרת השם שנת הריבונות ביהודה ושומרון. נתתי הנחיה למנהלת ההתיישבות במשרד הביטחון ולמינהל האזרחי להתחיל בעבודת מטה מקצועית ומקיפה ולהכין בפועל את התשתית הנדרשת להחלת הריבונות.
Smotrich said that Trump can lead the way to a truly new Middle East.
אנחנו אחרי השנה הזאת החזק במזרח התיכון. אנחנו נכיל את הריבונות. יחד עם ידידינו האמריקאים. נרחיב את ההסכמים ואת הבריתות שלנו עם המדינות השכנות ונייצר מזרח תיכון חדש אמיתי.
Meanwhile, anti-terror operations are continuing in Judea and Samaria. IDF forces and the Shin Bet arrested Hamas operatives in a series of sweeps conducted for wanted men in a number of towns. The army has been working intensively since last October to contain an upsurge of terrorist violence in Judea and Samaria. The Ephraim division arrested 4 wanted men and confiscated a drone and military equipment. 3 other wanted men were arrested by the Shomron division. There were no casualties to IDF forces.
Wow. Smotrich, he said it straight out. We are going to annex our land, and our land is Judea and Samaria. Oh yeah. You know, I don't like religious people, religious Jews, religious Christians, religious Muslims, religious anything. But when it comes to politics and it comes to what's right and what's just and what makes sense and what's rational, annexation of Judea and Samaria into the state of Israel is essential. And I'll just move to the next one, the last one.
And now in other news, American Christian leaders are set to make a strong statement at the National Religious Broadcasters Convention this week, signing a resolution affirming Israel's sovereignty over Judea and Samaria amid growing conservative support for the move. More on this from ILTV's Mayan Hoffman.
American Christian leaders for Israel at the National Religious Broadcasters Convention will sign a resolution this week reaffirming the Jewish people's right to Judea and Samaria. The resolution, set to be formally released on Tuesday in Dallas, follows a similar declaration by the Conservative Political Action Conference. It also comes ahead of an expected announcement by U.S. President Donald Trump within the next 2 weeks. Earlier this month, during a press conference in Washington with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Trump said he would make an announcement regarding Israeli annexation of the West Bank in about 4 weeks. The resolution reaffirms the Jewish people's inalienable right to the biblical heartland of Israel and rejects all efforts, both from the United States and the international community, to pressure the Jewish people to relinquish their ancestral homeland in Judea and Samaria. The resolution will be signed by ACLI members, a network of around 3,000 Christian pastors and organizational leaders. It will also be presented to Donald Trump. Similarly, at CPAC, held from February 19th to 22nd, a statement of support for Israel was read by CPAC board member K.T. McFarland, which acknowledged the presence of representatives from Jewish communities in the biblical heartland and declared the organization's support.
We believe all these areas are integral parts of Israel, and the United States of America and her allies should recognize Israel's sovereignty over these lands.
CPAC is considered one of the most influential conservative conferences in the United States and was attended by Vice President Vance and Elon Musk. What influences these resolutions will have on Trump's final decision regarding the territory should be seen soon enough.
I love it. So that was ooh, why am I in the way of this damn writing? Sorry. Can't get those are the videos I wanted to bring you, but I said at the beginning that I was going to go and go through some salient points, some bullet points. So a little bit of a history of what we know today as Jordan. I have pretty much pulled up, I don't know, a couple of minutes of reading, but essentially this. There you go. How about you don't see me, you just see that. So number one, I don't have maps, and number two, that you can't see the whole thing, can you? Hold on, let me just fix that. Let me just fix that for you. All right, there you go. Yeah, okay. So the Emirate of Transjordan, officially known as the Emirate of Transjordan, was a British protectorate established on April 11, 1921. It was located east of the Jordan River, primarily encompassing the territory of present-day Jordan. History and establishment. Post-World War I context. After the defeat of the Ottoman Empire in World War I, the region of Transjordan was initially part of the British-administered Occupied Enemy Territory Administration East. It briefly became part of the Hashemite-ruled Arab Kingdom of Syria. Battle of Maysalun and Interregnum. Following the French defeat of the Arab Kingdom of Syria in July 1920, Transjordan became a no-man's land with dysfunctional local governments. Arrival of Abdallah. In November 1920, Abdullah bin al-Hussein, son of Sharif Hussein of Mecca, the leader of the Arab revolt, arrived in Man with armed supporters, intending to attack the French in Syria. Cairo Conference and British decision. At the Cairo Conference in March 1921, Colonial Secretary Winston Churchill and other British officials decided to establish a separate administration for Transjordan within the British Mandate for Palestine. It was agreed that Abdullah would govern the territory as emir, effectively creating the Emirate of Transjordan. This also served to separate Transjordan from the provisions of the Balfour Declaration regarding Jewish settlement. So I just want to I want to make say something here. So Jewish settlement was not allowed in the territory of Transjordan, according to Colonial Secretary Winston Churchill at the Cairo Conference in March 1921. But it was open to Arab immigration. I just want that to be clear. Okay. British Protectorate from 1921 to 1946. Autonomy with British oversight. While the Emirate had a degree of self-governance under Emir Abdullah, key areas like foreign affairs, finance, and military were controlled by the British High Commissioner. 1928 Treaty. A treaty in 1928 formally recognized the existence of an independent government in Transjordan and defined its powers, though it still maintained British influence. This treaty was met with some disaffection amongst Transjordanians who sought full sovereignty. Arab Legion. The British also played a significant role in forming and training the Arab Legion, an elite military force primarily composed of Bedouin troops, which helped maintain stability and allegiance to Abdullah. In World War II. During World War II, Transjordan served as a strategic base for British military operations in the Middle East. Independence and transformation. Towards independence, after World War II, Transjordan moved towards full independence. The Treaty of London, 1946. On March the 22nd, 1946, the Treaty of London was signed between the United Kingdom and Transjordan, granting the Protectorate sovereignty and independence. Elevation to kingdom. On May the 25th, 1946, the Emirate became the Hashemite Kingdom of Transjordan, and Emir Abdullah I became King Abdullah I. Full independence was formally achieved on June 17, 1946, with the exchange of treaty ratifications in Amman. Name change, 1949. Following the 1948 Arab-Israeli War and the annexation of the West Bank, the country's name was changed to the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan in 1949. So my suggestion then for that name change is for the name change to revert back to what it was pre-1949, which is Transjordan, because that's where they are. They're on the other side of the Jordan River. They were formed as a sovereign nation east of the Jordan River, and their name on formation was Transjordan, and it should be returned to Transjordan. Jordan is just a nonsense name. That's pretty much it for now. I think we've gone long enough, 45 minutes. I'd like to continue. I will continue this topic in some form or another. But until then, we are pretty much done for now. I'll definitely see you soon. Until then, stay safe. And take care. Am Yisrael Chai.